Hey everyone, welcome to the E2 Effective Elders podcast. Visit us at e2elders.org and please share this good word with others.
Hey everybody, welcome to the E2 Effective Elders podcast. Today, we are going to learn of the 6 steps to transition a local church to elder governance. Now, those 6 steps are going to be at the end of the podcast, appearing on your screen, so stay to the very end, and there will be a link for a free resource for you to understand elder governance. Enjoy the story from University Christian Church. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the E2 podcast. And this month, April of 2025, we're looking at yet another skill of elders. And one of those skills is transitioning the church leadership structure from what is typically democratic corporate board models into what we call in the New Testament elder governance. And we cannot think of a better partner church to ask to join us in the conversation than University Christian Church in Manhattan, Kansas. And on the screen, we have Barry Park, the lead pastor of the church, and we have Dave Brotton, who sits in the chair of an elder at the church. Dave's been an elder there for many, many years. So, brothers, thank you for joining us in telling the story of University, the before and after, so to speak. So, welcome. And tell you what, Barry, why don't you start and take us back some years to what really precipitated transitioning University to this much more biblical, enjoyable governance model.
Absolutely. I've been with the church for over a dozen years now, and things were growing, things were outwardly really healthy, but internally, honestly, things aren't always internally healthy just because external markers are being met. And we basically were at a point in going into 17 and 18, a point where we had outgrown our leadership capability, to be honest, and we had some things that we needed to work on. And I had a very painful meeting. Basically, I loved my elders, my brothers. So these are guys I'd been in the, just down in the foxhole with, so to speak. But we weren't unified, and I didn't realize how much we weren't unified on mission. We had one of our elders that kind of come in, great guy in the church, great teacher, well respected, and all of a sudden he was taking us kind of off this way while we were trying to head forward. And it was kind of a quiet thing, and it really caused some struggle. And so to give the quick summary of 2 years, it got to a point where I went into an elders meeting and said, guys, something needs to change. I haven't wanted to be a part of an elders meeting for about 2 years. I love you guys. I love this church. But it was almost painful to come in because there was just this tension within. And historically, I knew that the dangers of obviously not being unified. And so I tried to address things with the one elder. I tried to go to him personally, tried to go through with the chairman, and he didn't quite see what was going on from the same perspective. Said, Barry, just kind of let it go. Well, it finally, between my coming in and talking, and then it blew up finally in a meeting. What had been quietly going on blew up in a meeting. All of a sudden, we had to get some help. And so we ended up reaching out, and one of our guys had heard about this group called E2. I had at that point not ever heard anything about Gary. I hadn't heard about E2, any of the guys. But we needed help with our leadership team. And so we reached out to them, and as a group ended up getting connected with one of the representatives, Gary, that was you. And it was a tremendous process where we started talking about how do we as a team become focused on what elders are called to do in the Bible, not just being this board that represented a bunch of people. Because that was really, each guy on the group, they were all good men of integrity, but they tended to say, okay, I represent this section, I represent this section, I represent this section, rather than saying we represent God to the section. It just changes things. And that was something that we really talked about. How do we move from being member-driven to mission-driven? And that meant we needed to change our bylaws. We realized, we talked that out, and because we were a standard kind of church across America with the vote, and we had the ability to, you had all these things that could come into play. You could call a meeting, and then if you called a meeting, you had a quorum, and then here's how you could vote. And when you're an evangelistic church, if you're reaching lost people, it takes quite a bit of time before they're mature followers ready to make decisions based on the Bible. And so all of a sudden, when we're baptizing, going on a couple hundred people a year, and then you're asking them to make a vote on what sin is or what the Bible says, and they haven't even been discipled fully yet, that's a dangerous kind of recipe, we realized. And so that's when, after a lot of talk and a lot of work, we wanted to become this idea of mission driven. We wanted to be eldership led rather than congregationally or member led. And but yet we also knew we needed accountability in the process. So we talked a lot about that with E2 and how to have accountability within our team. So we ended up having this whole presentation. We went to the church, and E2 helped us with that. Our leaders went out to all of our small groups. We announced it on Sundays, and we ended up having basically a vote to get rid of the vote because of some of the concerns. We wanted to be elder driven there and elder led. And just to give you a quick insight of what this looked like, and I'm not joking, we literally had we had a guy that was about 6'4", 6'5", about 400 pounds, standing at the door, handing out shirts saying "Vote No" on it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what do we do? I couldn't believe it. And
that guy's bigger than you.
oh my goodness, he made me look like a shrimp. And I'm like, oh boy, and of course, because of the way we had things, Robert's Rules of Order, he did his little stump speech, others did their stump speech. And we had just laid out, here's what the Bible says. Here's what we're called to do. We need to be stuck on what God is stuck on, not stuck on what man is stuck on. And that was a hard thing. Well, in the end, the people understood, the core of the church that was there understood. They voted to get rid of the vote. And then here was one of the sad parts is we had one of the leader's sons on the way out was so upset about his right to vote because as an American, he'd kind of gotten that all confused. He walked out, he kicked a table over, told one of the elders there, you can go to hell, and walked out. That was how it started. So this process came at a cost. That cost was a real cost, and it was kind of painful on that. But oh my goodness, Dave ended up being a part of the change and the benefit because we really wanted to develop a band of brothers, of guys who were leaders and who were going to say, what is it that God has called us to do specifically at UCC? And how do we accomplish this? And it was a big transformation. I remember as Dave came on as one of the elders, I actually texted him when I knew we had vetted, we had talked through, we'd gone through an account. And I was like praying over, please, Dave, if God has led you to do this, I so hope you'll come. Because now here, I want to make sure when you hear me saying that I actually asked him to consider this, I asked him to consider it knowing that Dave was anything but a yes man. Dave is a very strong leader. I knew he would give me pushback, but I also knew he had the heart of God. And so he ended up coming on, and I'll let him tell a little bit more about that, and end up becoming one of the chairmen. And my goodness, as we walk through this process in the years to come, there were numerous times we had what I called our, we went to the park. I can't remember what we used to call it, but we'd sit in the city park and Dave would help me. I had to relearn how to do ministry as an elder because I'd been in the war internally and externally. He had to help me to get rid of some bad habits. We as the elders all had to talk out, how do we get rid of some bad habits? How do we become mission driven, not member driven? And my goodness, I love my elders meetings. I have ever since we made this change. We are unified. They are for God and for me. I'm for them. And so we lock arms, and it's just been great. And so that's kind of a quick process of what I had seen and where I'd seen and kind of where we are. Dave, I'd love for you to fill in some of the gaps.
Sure.
Dave, you think back to the time, Dave, when all of this was beginning, and from an elder's perspective, kind of tell your story.
Yeah. Sure. In hindsight, it has been a really beautiful thing. I landed as an elder the first year we really started having the conversations about doing this, and oh, there's going to need to be a bylaw change, and a lot of our, I'm going to say, our senior elders, our guys that had been elders for a long, long time, really took the reins with our small groups and our Sunday school classes to say, hey guys, this is what we're thinking, this is where we're going. Um, as luck would would have it, that following year, I ended up taking sort of the head elder position, which was when we did the vote. And so, I think there was, in hindsight, really great, but there was fear on the congregation side, and there was fear on our side in terms of uh, we're giving up this vote, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of comments. What makes you the right elder to decide all the decisions for what we're doing, and how do we hold ourselves accountable? So there's going to be, more brother building, more walking alongside us. And then also there's that fear from the congregation of I'm giving something up. I don't have any control over this. And as a, sort of a backstory, I grew up in the Methodist Church, and my family still goes to the Methodist Church. And in this time, there was a lot of fighting that was going on about beliefs, right? And a lot of churches were starting to split. And I was concerned, being an elder for UCC, that I didn't want a rogue group of folks showing up to a meeting with 50 or 100 people saying, hey, let's call for a vote. I know how the bylaws work. We'd like to make some changes. And so part of what attracted me to this model was it offers a level of protection. Now, that being said, 6 months later or 8 months later, we end up in COVID, right? And so we were making all of these decisions, and being able to do it as an elder group versus a vote, and trying to communicate stuff that was happening. We were having Zoom meetings every night of, what's the status of our people and where we're going. So, there were a few rough patches, when we had the meeting, and a lot of the education, but it has been absolutely phenomenal in terms of how we run our meetings, the accountability that we do with elders, with each other. And that's a pretty deep dive.
Yeah.
Even challenging, hey, is it time for you to take a break? You've been an elder for 5 years, are you ready to step away for a year or two? We'd love to have you back, but maybe, you slowed down with your passion or your fire, or, hey, let's talk about getting a couple other people in, and how do we start that interview process? How do we identify those people? So those have been really phenomenal in terms of making this shift.
Yeah. And so if I recall correctly, when you invited E2 to the table, and we literally got a copy of your former bylaws, we read them analytically. And I can remember taking a yellow highlighter and highlighting every word or phrase that reflected a democratic environment.
Yep.
The ballot, the vote, the term of office, voted in, etc., the word vote. And if I recall correctly, you even had a provision for a president and a vice president of the congregation.
Yep. We
And
did.
book, chapter, and verse, where on earth is that one? And two, you had a requirement. You had to onboard every year a certain number of elders, and a certain number of elders every year had to leave the table. So it was really a revolving door of elder leaders of the church, which could not build any kind of
No continuity.
no continuity, no brotherhood.
About the time you started running smooth, two people left and two new people came on, and it's a couple of years to get the new guys up and running with where they feel comfortable with where they're going. And then all of a sudden, the guys that just got really good, they're stepping off for a year or two before they can come back. And so, it was dysfunctional just in the way that it was set up. And it wasn't until we really started, kind of getting together and having a core set of guys for multiple years, that you really start to see what was going on. And now you see how much better, how much more unity there is, how much more discussion, forward thinking that we're doing. So it's a good setup.
So then, Barry, you are obviously the preaching elder at
Mhm.
university, and you are a peer among peers. You
Yeah.
are one of the brothers at the table. Your voice is not only heard, but your voice is wanted.
Yeah.
And the congregation sees you as that, correct? The
Yes.
congregation recognizes you as that.
Yeah. And to be real blunt, for prior to this point, didn't realize how much it was impacting. I really felt like an employee of the organization, not a brother, not a part of. Even though I'd sacrificed, my family was there. This is our home, and that was part of the separation. Well, we gotta be careful with the employee mindset rather than just sitting down and saying, "Hey guys, where are we going to go?" And
Mhm.
I'm one of the brothers that we
Right.
work together, and that has created so much more trust in my heart and trust in the elders, and thus we're able to
Mhm.
move forward. And it's just amazing on a forward focus rather than a, and that was going on prior.
Yep. So that culture of fear,
Yeah,
worry of the unknown, or worry about conflict and
yeah.
tension, that fear factor has now really dissipated,
Oh,
and
yeah. You
there's
know,
real fulfillment and joy and eagerness.
yeah.
Okay.
Because, one of the things that happened with us during this transition, and I think a lot of churches are scared of, is, well, that's too much power for a group to have, and we need to keep them accountable. Well, to me, I'd much rather be biblically accountable the way you're supposed to. And
Mhm.
I think that's the thing. It was a fear that when we went into this, we knew an accountability process really had to happen, and that needed to be official. We actually worked with you to put that in our bylaws, where it was a requirement that the elders have an accountability process every year. And so just as any healthy organization would evaluate their employees, what they're doing, are they on mission, are they getting things done? We do the same thing as a church within now, and every year we're in that process right now. Every elder on the team, myself included, does a self-evaluation, and then we evaluate one another. And then what happens is little weeds that start to grow just
Mhm.
get pulled out before they
Right.
become a big weed, and it
Yep.
actually hijacks the mission of the church. And
Mhm.
so when I sit in a team, I mean, when there's 10 guys in our group right now, and if 10 guys, or at least 6 or 7 or whatever, say, "Hey, Barry, this is something I see.
Mhm.
I want to challenge you to work on."
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, wow. I realize I'm being blind to something. And any
Mhm.
guy at the table, as we share with them, they're good men. They're all type A, strong, gifted leaders. But if they hear from all their brothers, "Hey, here's something that's a little bit of a weed." Oh, well, we address that. And it's not that painful because you're addressing it when it's a small weed before it actually is overtaken and intertwined into everything that you're doing.
Yep.
Right.
Good point. Good point.
And too, it's really important for everybody who's either listening to or watching our podcast or this conversation right now. The two of you have been very instrumental in this. I can remember back when we were invited to the table, Dave, you were a new elder, and I can even remember my very first site visit to university. You were leading that meeting, and you were beginning a journey. You guys have used the word process appropriately. You didn't flip a switch and immediately you had elder governance. It was a
Yeah.
journey. It was painful from time to time, but Jesus sent his guys out two by two, and it's pretty obvious that the two of you really value each other as endeared brothers of Jesus, one to each other.
Yeah.
And just as Barry, you're a very gifted leader. I've known you for a long time. You are a gifted leader, but you could not have made this journey,
No,
this transition alone. You
no.
needed another gifted leader to
Yeah.
come alongside. And whether it's a Paul and a Barnabas or a Paul and a Silas, the two of you were used of the Lord instrumentally to take the bride, University Christian Church, to a place where she has never been before. And now all of the pain has really borne for you incredible joy and fruit. The church is not even close to
No.
what she was then. You have advanced the kingdom of God, not only in central Kansas, but far beyond, because you guys decided we're going to do this.
I can't fathom going into what happened all across America in 2020 if we had not gone through this process. I just can't even, I know churches closed around the nation,
Right.
struggled. Many of them never opened again, or they never opened as they were. And we came out of that so unified because we were able to navigate very difficult waters and some painful, difficult decisions. But we did so as a band of brothers, and we did so as leaders holding one another accountable. And so we made decisions on what's best for the church, not any one of us. And then every year we've continued to build right back. And that's just been a godsend to me. When one of us is weak, someone else is strong, and it's all meant to stand together that way.
Yeah. We also, I mean, this took all of the elders coming together. I mean, we had Mike and Greg and Dan, and I'm going to forget several guys, but guys that had been elders for quite a while and had a lot invested in the community of our church, who were helping have, and we did the same thing with those meetings. We 2x2'd, right? It was always, because you get asked tough questions or you get challenged on stuff, and you need to be able to have somebody there to tap your hand and say, hey, let me jump in here. I gotta, here's what you're asking, and here's why it's important that we're doing what we're doing. And so I think our level of unity went way up when we went through that process, and we haven't looked back.
No.
Well, to summarize, just listening to you, both of you tell the story, I hear some clearly articulated steps. If there's a church out there who wants to transition away from the old, outdated, irrelevant, unproductive model of church boards, etc., here are the steps. Number one, you have to admit we're broken, and that's what you guys did at university.
Yeah,
this is not. Yep, this is not working. And in humility, we have to admit it's broken. Step number two, B, you have to know what your bylaws, your current bylaws say, and you guys did. You took a deep dive and you saw how irrelevant, how actually hurtful those existing bylaws were to your environment. Step number three, the letter C, you had to create a new, in your mind, what would be a right thing. And immediately you and your mind went to, we want to be elder guarded, we want to be staff guided, and we want to be people gifted. Everybody matters at University Christian Church. Everybody's got a gift. Now, we don't want to just be an elder protected, staff led. That's shallow. That's the icing on the cake. When you wanted to be elder guarded, staff guided, and people gifted, everybody mattered at university.
Everybody.
Yeah. And then number four, step four, the draft. You guys worked almost a year on your draft. We kept guiding you along the way, but I can remember Mike, he was a huge proponent of writing that draft. You got it done. And then step number five, you brought in people for Q&A. You flew me out there. I was there for 5 days. And I remember all the conversations. I can remember one lady saying to me in a Q&A session, if you take away our vote, and I said, well, first of all, I'm not the one taking away your vote. If you take away our vote, we won't, how do you get rid of a bad elder? And I said, well, don't vote in a bad elder in the first place.
Don't get them in the first place.
Yeah. And so what have you done? You've created a wonderful vetting system to carefully select godly called men, and then you're holding them accountable. That's how you get rid of a person who's not performing well. So Q&A, and then last of all, step number 6, you adopt. You formally adopt those new bylaws, and you did that. You had that meeting. T-shirts, vote no. But you had the vote, that got rid of the vote. And today you're in this incredible season of health and vitality, and healthy things grow. So we're grateful for the partnership. And if you had one last final word to a church who is dealing with this challenge in front of them, Dave, what would that be from you? And Barry, what would that be from you? What would you tell them?
always in prayer, right? I mean, it was the beginning, the middle, and the end of every one of these steps. And are we listening? Are we doing? Are we taking the action that we need to do? Are we ignoring something that we should be doing? And so obviously this is not a light subject, but in prayer, and don't be afraid.
Good. Pray some more, and don't be afraid. Don't lead in fear, lead in faith that our God is more than able. Okay, Barry?
Yeah, for me, I would just challenge you to really look at, as a church, where is your true allegiance? What is driving what you're doing? What is the purpose of your church even? Because I think so many of us have just lost that. I mean, there are more churches who are a country club than they are about, that is, just keeping their power and their structure and their comfort, than they are about being about what Jesus is about. And if we're going to be about what Jesus gave us as the Great Commission and the Great Commandment to do this, my goodness, it's going to take sacrifice on our side. And so don't sit back and go, well, this is a hard journey, so I'm not sure I want to do it. No, this is a hard journey. Just like anything good in life takes sacrifice, it takes work, and there is going to be pain along the way. But my goodness, we're talking about eternities. We're talking about the future of the bride of Christ. And Jesus said, then the gates of hell will not do anything against this bride that I'm putting forth. This is his kingdom, not ours. And so we got to march forward. We got to move forward, knowing that eternity is at stake, not just my little comfort zone is at stake. Eternities are at stake. And so for me, when I look out over the church every Sunday, I think about, okay, what am I willing to love the bride the way that Christ has called me to? And if I'm loving the bride, that's going to make me uncomfortable at times, and I got to step into it. And the beautiful thing is more often than not, as you go through that, as you count the cost, and yes, you'll have to pay some cost, the beauty of being together with one heart, one mind, on mission is just, it's just incredible. I am so thankful for where we are today. And I'm thankful for the help we had in getting there. And it was absolutely worth the cost.
Yeah, we're so grateful. Those are two very powerful closing words of encouragement to everybody listening. Everyone, there's going to be a link at the bottom of the screen. It's for a free resource. Leaders in churches literally across the country and even around the world have downloaded this document, and it's on the 5 responsibilities of an elder in the midst of elder governance. Click on that link and let us help you make that process a reality. God bless you. Thank you, brothers, so very much. Appreciate it.